It's a very good morning here on this Wednesday morning, the 11th of October, 2017. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the first hour in the newsroom. I'm Elvis Presland. We'll be with you until 12 o'clock now today. Now, we focus on the big story today, Kendall. It's a massive story in KZN. We've seen some of the visuals coming through, the storms and the floods that's happening there, as well as here in Gauteng the other day.
Yeah, we had a taste of it. We had hailstones the size of golf balls and a little bit of flooding, but KZN was absolutely horrendous, incredibly dangerous for a lot of pedestrians as well as motorists.
And then the question that we want to pose to you is, do we here in South Africa, does South Africa have adequate early warning systems in place? Because what has happened here is what you can see. Cars are in rivers.
Absolutely, houses falling apart, walls tumbling down. Michael Bigamstola says, no, we don't have adequate early warning systems. And the truth of the matter is we're not used to all this latest natural disasters that have occurred recently. We need to step up our game.
Well, this one from Gudani says, well, unlike the rest of the world, with crazy weather and hurricanes, we never had those issues until now. So, no, we don't have those early warning systems in place. We'll speak to some of the stakeholders to find out if there is such a thing. And some people are suggesting that there was early warning by the weather forecaster to say, listen, there's going to be a storm, but was it adequate enough?
Yeah, that's a question.
But we're also taking a look at Parliament. They're looking into the Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebani's fitness to hold office after her attempt to change the mandate of the South African Reserve Bank as part of her remedial action on ABSA and the Bancorp report.
So we're asking you, is it not too early to review the Public Protector's fitness to hold office?
Well, 224 votes in, I tell you, and the majority, Kendall, 3/4 of South Africans and people on the African continent are suggesting, no, it's not too early.
Yeah, Mahafa Noel says, if she's not doing what's expected from her, we must review her fitness to hold office. Public Protector's office is not a spaza shop.
South Africans, they say it as they see it. Gadani says, it's way too early. She is still new to the position. Let her find her footing first, and then you will know. Well, there's some reprieve being asked, but what is your thoughts on the question?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm not going to give my thoughts because we're accepting your views and using that. And we want to find out from you, with regards to what's happening in the world of sports. As you all know, the South Africa's Global T20 League has been cancelled. And what do you make of it? What do you make of the cancellation of the Cricket T20 Global League, which broke yesterday?
Now, you know, it's a massive league. They said it was going to be, and I mean, it's going to cost probably about 80 million rand to Cricket South Africa, and that's part and parcel of the issues that they're looking for. Faf du Plessis. Is that Faf du Plessis that we know?
Captain Faf du Plessis.
Yes?
Captain, my captain.
He says, was really looking forward to the Global League this year in South Africa. I'm disappointed that the tournament has been postponed. Faf, thank you so much for letting us know what's on your mind. That's a cricket player.
That's a cricket player. Michael Bigamstola says, disappointed. And the big boys are not pulling in the same direction behind the scene, officials here say. Major sponsors failed to come on board. And apparently there was also a broadcast deal that had not been finalized. Harun Norgat left before all of this came out. So yes, it brings us to question all sorts of things about how we got to this point.
Why is the question, Mara why? But right now, let's take a look at your news headlines. Mop-up operations underway across the storm-ravaged KwaZulu-Natal province. The presidency defends President Jacob Zuma's delay in appointing the permanent SABC board. And Liberia sees its first democratic transition of power in more than 70 years as the nation awaits presidential election results. Now, those are your headlines, and before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
There was quite a lot. We had breaking news yesterday, which we just missed during our show because it happened as we were leaving. But yeah, the Global T20 League is not happening this year. It's going to take a year later. It's going to come on board. But
lots of questions to be asked about.
Yes, lots of questions. You know, with just weeks to go until it was meant to start, this comes out. So a lot needs to be answered. And Harun Norgat's departure is also quite timely. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
And Messi in space. Messi to accelerate to look for the hat-trick.
Lionel Messi silences his critics, single-handedly booking Argentina's passage to Russia with a hat-trick in Quito.
He is unbelievable. Lionel Messi saves Argentina.
Well, it's a dangerous ball in, and it leads to the opening goal from Abel Ruiz.
At the Under-17 World Cup in India, Spain destroys Niger, setting the young Africans the tough target of beating Brazil in their final group match to advance to the next round.
We are not going to deliver a T20 league to the detriment of Cricket South Africa and its members.
Cricket South Africa's T20 Global League gets postponed by a whole year, and the Cricketers Association seeks compensation for the players who were contracted to play in it. All this in more detail I'll have for you at 10:40. Stay with Elvis, though, as he's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour. Mopping up operations are underway across KwaZulu-Natal following the severe storm that swept through the province yesterday, killing 6 people. It battered the south coast and also caused damage and destruction in areas such as Ngutu and Nkandla in the north of the province. The weather over the province is expected to clear up from this morning.
The storm wreaked havoc in areas south of Durban, swiftly moving up the coast. Videos and pictures on social media, those that could be verified, painted its destructive force. Motorists were trapped on heavily flooded roads. Buildings and homes suffered major storm damage. N2 at Prospecton, south of Durban, was closed to traffic in both directions for hours. Cars were submerged in rising floodwaters.
Come, stop, lot of water. On the road,
There's a car under the water. I'm not too sure if there's anyone inside. It's just here, under the bridge.
Trees were also uprooted as gale force winds lashed the coast. Residents were warned against driving or walking in the inclement weather. Roads in the southern parts of the city were closed, causing major traffic disruptions. The Durban harbour was badly affected when a massive container vessel ran aground in the harbour entrance. There were, however, no flight delays or cancellations at King Shaka International Airport. Renee Heiner, SABC News, Durban.
For the latest on the floods, we are joined by our reporter Mlungisi Khumalo from SABC in Durban. A very good morning to you, Mlungisi. How is the mop-up operations going there in KwaZulu-Natal, especially in Durban?
Well, a very good morning to you, Elvis, as well as our viewers at home. I can, yes, confirm to you that the mop-up operation has been going very, very well. Since 4 a.m. this morning, municipality officials, have been out on the streets trying to remove debris on the streets, trying to also remove trees on the streets. But it's very, very unfortunate that some of the residents still today are unfortunately still counting the cost. Because if you can just see around me, there's that building over there where there was mudslide and rubble has, of course, collapsed it. And just right behind me, not far away, you can actually see a 2-bedroom home that was brought to the ground by the very severe storms. And you can actually just see a fridge over there. You can also just see the food over there, toilet rolls. I mean, they are basically in dire need of assistance. But with me to give me some of the answers that we need as the community, in particular in the eThekwini region, is Mr. Mlando Mngadi, who's also the committee ward secretary, who will just give us the answers that we need. Mr. Mngadi, we see just behind you here, there's a family that's lost basically everything, and they said to us that informed the municipality about this 3 years ago, and yet nothing happens. Why is that?
Good morning and thanks for having me. The community of Northridge Park has been in touch with the ward councillor and together with us as ward committee. They've reported the matter from time to time, but unfortunately we have tried to intervene, but there are bylaws that prohibit us to entertain those matters. Unfortunately, this is a common property. It's only the body corporate that has got to solve the problem within the complex itself. So we have tried together with the PR councillor and as well as the councillor of the ward to come and assess the matter and reported it to the municipality and see what they can do, because the most problem that they've been anticipating all along is the sewage system, that it has been overflooding to these two houses here down here, because it has been a problem all this time long. But I'm told, I've been communicating with the board councillors, ward councillor, and as well as the PR councillor about the matter. They've been working on the matter until 12 o'clock. They told me that they've been up. The disaster management is going to come on site as we speak. The water and storm sanitation is also going to come on site to work on the matter.
Yes, Mr. Mngadi, how is the cleaning up and the mop-up operation going on so far?
They've been very busy because it's not only here. This disaster has affected most of our ward. As we speak, we've also have the place called Umhlatuzane and Kodmo, where there's informal settlements. Those people also were highly affected because they had to sleep outside. Now the board councillors had to arrange the place for them to sleep. I'm told they slept on the hall because they couldn't sleep on their places. Trees fell on their shacks and they had nowhere to go. So and also this department, that Parks department, which is responsible of cleaning up, they've been cutting trees all over, because also on the roads, all roads were blocked because of tree fell on roads.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mngadi. There you've heard it from Mr. Mngadi himself. He says the mopping up operations are going very, very well. And I might also add that it's around 10 o'clock and as well as around 12 a.m. the Premier will hold a emergency press briefing where the various MECs across the province have been called to see what's the damage that has been caused. And I might also add, just before I give back to you, Elvis, that the number is said to have increased, because we are also informed that yesterday a wall fell on top of a mother and her child in one of the local hospitals. So we will get more on that later as the day progresses. Over to you in studio.
Mlungisi, thank you so much. That was our reporter Mlungisi Kumalo from the ravaged province of KwaZulu-Natal. And that is why we're asking you this question on your screen this morning. Do we have, as South Africa, do we have adequate warning systems in place? Let me take a look at what you are telling us on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. Desley Lafellow says, why they warn people before a week? We need to improve, but it's Mother Nature, nothing that they can do, says Desley. Patricia Brown says, if Lennox of the Cooperative Governance says that they were surprised by the storm, then obviously not. We are not prepared. Malibongwe says, just because in Durban this time they failed to warn the people about the storm doesn't mean we don't have an adequate early warning emergency system or systems in place, says Malibongwe. Well, you can let me know what's on your mind. We'll try and speak to some of the stakeholders as well to keep us abreast of the situation in Durban. Now, the man tasked with moving the Life Esidimeni patients says that he warned officials that the transfer could be disastrous. Levi Musanochi is the state's second witness to take the stand at the arbitration hearings into the tragedy. He's again pointed fingers at the former Health MEC Kwadani Mashlangu and the department's head, Dr. Bani Selabano, accusing them of rushing the process.
So help me God.
The horror of the Life Esidimeni tragedy laid bare. The man tasked with that project, Levi Musanochi, says he raised serious concerns in February 2016 to health authorities on the timeframes of the transfers, but was ignored.
What went wrong is that the timelines for the project were just abnormal. We could not do that in the timelines that were given.
Under cross-examination, Musanochi was forced to concede that the NGOs the patients were transferred to were inexperienced to care for the mentally ill.
Would you agree that a number of these NGOs were new NGOs? They didn't exist prior to the decision to terminate the contract. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, in hindsight, I think I agree with that, we ended up even giving patients NGOs that are not experienced to do the work.
Mosonogi also testified he had little choice but to follow instructions.
Sometimes I became the lone voice. One time I was asked whether am I a spokesperson of Life Esidimeni.
The arbitration process is part of the Health Ombudsman's recommendations to seek redress for the aggrieved families. Mahlangu and Selebano have once again been identified as key to unravelling what happened to the patients, but they're not on the list of state witnesses to give evidence. And now there are growing calls for them to give their side of the story. Crisalda Lewis, SABC News in Parktown, Johannesburg.
I will go to the arbitration hearings in a short while to cover that live. Meanwhile, presidential spokesperson Bongani Nkulunga has again defended President Jacob Zuma's delay to appoint the SABC board. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Communication says it will call both trade union BMAU and the so-called SABC8 to appear before it. Now, this comes after the committee's chairperson, Humphrey Matlagwana, and some political parties received 2 open letters from the union and the group about the state of affairs at the SABC in the absence of a board. Dr. Nkulunga says that the matter is being attended to with the urgency that it deserves. On the continent now, the first results of an election that will usher in Liberia's first democratic transition of power in more than 70 years could be released as soon as this afternoon. Liberians turned out in force yesterday to choose a successor to President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for helping to bring peace to the embattled country after years of civil war. A calm day of ballot casting with long lines across the West African nation captured peaceful election campaign. Now, 20 candidates stood to replace Johnson Sirleaf, but none are expected to win an outright majority. Among the frontrunners are the Vice President Joseph Nyama Bokai, as well as a former football star George Weah, who lost to Johnson Sirleaf in 2005. Now, that's your news for now. We'll come back to some of the stories to keep you abreast of what's happening here in the country, on the continent, and around the globe. Now, we're asking you this question on our poll today, and this is our focus point, and we'd like to find out from you. Is it too early to review the public protector's fitness to hold office? There you have it. Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, hashtag, as well as the public protector. And we have so far 256 votes in. 76% of you, no, 75 rather, are saying no. That's 3/4 of you are saying no. It is not too early, and only 25% are saying yes, it is the time. Now, the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, KSAC, has also questioned the public protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane's fitness to hold office. Now, for more on this, we're joined by Lawson Naidu, the Executive Secretary of the Advancement of South Africa's Constitution, KSAC, in our parliamentary studios. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Now, the issue of the public protector and her fitness to hold office. First, take us through the mandate of the public protector's office so we all can understand that.
Well, the Office of the Public Protector is established, as the name would suggest, is to assist ordinary members of the public who have complaints against state organs or officials of the state, public servants, other service delivery providers who failing to execute their mandates in order to provide proper services to the people of South Africa. And where there are complaints, one is able to raise these complaints with the Office of the Public Protector. That allows that body, that office, to investigate those complaints and to recommend and put in place appropriate remedial action to correct the failure of state organs, if there is indeed found to have been a failure of state organs. So it's really to provide the ordinary person in the street with access to legal redress that they would not otherwise be able to have access to, either through the fact that they are unable to afford it or that do not know how to frame the complaint properly. So the Office of the Public Protector would also assist citizens in framing the complaint to understand what the core issue is, and then to assist them to frame the complaint in a way that the Office of the Public Protector is able to assist ordinary citizens. So I think it's an incredibly important institution within our constitutional framework that really gives meaning to the content of the rights that are contained in the Bill of Rights to enable people to claim those rights that we claim to be so proud about.
Now, the Public Protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, has been in office for less than a year. Why is her fitness to hold office questionable now?
Well, I think there have been a number of instances in her conduct since she has assumed office which have called into question her capacity to execute the mandate of that office. It is an office that is independent in terms of the Constitution. It's an office that must execute its functions without fear, favour or prejudice, fully independently, and within the mandate that the Constitution and the legislative framework provides to her. I think we've seen in a few cases, and obviously the matter that has resulted in this being brought to the attention of Parliament now is her conduct in the Absa Bancorp matter, where as part of the remedial action, Advocate Mkhwebane suggested that Parliament and the Portfolio Committee on Justice should amend the Constitution and amend the mandate of the Reserve Bank. And not just to say that Parliament should review it, but she was very prescriptive in what it should do and even suggested how that constitutional amendment should be framed. So I think that was a question of the Public Protector clearly overstepping her constitutional and legal mandate. The matter has come before the North Gauteng High Court already, and the Judge Murphy found that the Public Protector had indeed overstepped her mandate, and she came in for some quite strong judicial criticism in that matter. And I think these are issues that have resulted in this matter now being formally tabled with Parliament for Parliament to exercise its authority in terms of the Constitution to conduct an inquiry as to whether the Public Protector remains fit to hold office.
Looking at the Bancorp issue, do you perhaps think that she's maybe confused or perhaps do not understand her role in relation to what she's supposed to do?
Well, I mean, I think that is quite clear, and it's certainly the comments that Judge Murphy made in that case. And I think that really goes to the heart of this issue, is that this is an office, as I've just explained, that carries immense power. And we know from the Nkandla Constitutional Court judgment that it's a power that is legally binding unless set aside by a court. So it has a very powerful authority. And that authority needs to be exercised responsibly, with caution and in line with the law. And if Advocate Mkhwebane is not capable of doing that on a consistent basis, then her fitness to hold office will indeed be called into account.
Now, we're asking our viewers today, but I would like to ask you, don't you think, though, it's perhaps too early to question her fitness to hold office? She's only a year in office.
Well, I think there have probably been sufficient examples of her falling beyond the standard required of someone holding the office of the Public Protector. There have been sufficient examples of that to warrant such an inquiry. And obviously this is an inquiry that Parliament will have to take seriously. It would have to look at the various instances that point to either her incapacity to do the job, her incompetence, or if there are indeed allegations of misconduct. Those are the three grounds on which a Public Protector can be removed by Parliament. Bearing in mind that this is an independent office, we need to be sure that any decision that Parliament takes is a decision that is properly entrenched in the Constitution on those three bases on which she might be found to be wanting. So there needs to be a proper inquiry with input, I would suggest, from the public as well as from other political parties and other interested groups. Now,
seeing that she's a year in office, she hasn't had much time to review and make sure that she does all these cases. And don't you think that our people, South Africans, expecting too much from her after Advocate Thuli Madonsela's extremely well done job that she has done on many of the cases that's being questioned?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think there are obviously comparisons being made. I don't think those comparisons are particularly helpful. I think the key issue here is that any person that occupies the office of public protector must be fit and proper to hold that office, and they must be fit and proper to do so from day one. Whether she's been in office for a year or for 5 years should really not matter. Because of the responsibilities that that office carries with it, the standards that are set are those that are set not by any predecessor, but are those that are set in the Constitution and in the expectations of the people of South Africa, who expect the office of the public protector to be able to ensure that state organs are properly held to account and that ordinary citizens are provided with redress when and where required.
So, you are questioning her fitness to office in 10 seconds. Do you think that she should step down?
Well, I think that might be advisable for Advocate Mkhwebane to step down if she feels that she has indeed fallen short. And I think she would need to take a long look in the mirror in order to answer that question. But if she does not do so, and I think there needs to then be a proper inquiry conducted by Parliament to establish the facts and for Parliament to make that decision, as it is entrusted to do by the Constitution. There needs to be an inquiry conducted by a committee of Parliament, and it is only after the National Assembly votes by a 2/3 majority to remove her from office will that take effect. So there is sufficient protection for the independence of that office entrenched in the Constitution, but I think we do need to follow due process in this matter.
I thank you so much for your time, sir, and joining us in our parliamentary studios.
Thank you.
That was the Executive Secretary of the Advancement of the South African Constitution, KSAC, is Lawson Naidu, in our parliamentary studios. Let's now take a look at what's trending on social media. And we start off with the Durban storms, #there, that caused a trail of destruction yesterday, from trees being blown over blocked roads to heavy flooding, washing away parts of buildings and cars and covering roadways, including a highway. Can you believe it? A highway looks like that. It looks like a river. These cars were trying to pass through a river. At least 6 people are confirmed to have died thus far. You can follow at Traffic SA for updates, especially in Durban. And then we move on. #Life Esidimeni. Dispute resolution process and tragedy continues here in Gauteng, here in Parktown. The Health Ombudsman, Professor Malachopuru Makgoba, said that a total of 118 patients died between October last year and February this year. Not one of the 27 NGOs met the criteria to host the patients. Then in Kenya, re-elections will go ahead despite the opposition leader Raila Odinga pulling out of the presidential race. Now, he says that the electoral officials have failed to make necessary reforms after the previous voting process was declared invalid by the High Court. #Raila Odinga. Moving further afield now, thousands of Palestinians and Israeli women marched for peace yesterday. Women even shared their pictures on Instagram, and look at that picture of all the women waging peace. #. And in line with Women's March, today is International Day of the Girl, and it aims to promote equality for young girls and women who still live in a society where their rights are not equal to men. #International Day of the Girl. You can follow all of that. Our picture of the day comes from Sharongbela, and it's captioned, "Praying for my hometown, praying for my family, relatives, elders, friends, all in Durban. God protect everyone. Natural disasters are a clear sign of climate change. It is real, people. Science is real." Well, there you have it. Those are the pictures coming through and some of the visuals that you've seen earlier of what was happening in Durban yesterday. Apparently, the mop-up operations we heard from our reporter earlier is continuing, and it's going well. We'll keep you updated on the story as it unfolds. But our comment of the day comes from Pawun Army, who says, "You wake up every morning to fight the same demons that left you tired the night before, and that, my love, is bravery." World Mental Health Day. That was yesterday, of course, commemorating World Mental Health Day. Let's now take a look at what's happening in our courts in Polokwane. A family murder accused Polokwane businessman Ramesh Patel is expected to formally apply for bail in the city's magistrates court. The bail application relates to the charge of killing of his mother, Mahajeen Patel. Now, she was shot at her home last month, and later she died in hospital. Patel is also standing trial for the 2015 murder of his wife, Fatima. She was also shot and killed. The bail application has been scheduled for 2 days. We will keep you updated on these and more cases as they develop. Let's now throw forward and look to tomorrow. On the bright side, we are looking at the bogus doctors operating in South Africa, so it's not such a bright side tomorrow. The National Traffic Anti-Corruption Unit, attached to the Road Traffic Management Corporation, or the RTMC as you know them, will conduct more raids on bogus doctors in the city centre. We won't tell you exactly when, but it is happening continuously throughout the month, so you have to stay tuned. Let's now come back to our theme, and we're still looking at what is happening. Parliament has resolved to conduct an inquiry into the Public Protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane's fitness to hold office, making her the first occupier of that office to be subjected to such a probe. Now, to speak to us whether or not it's time to review the appointment of the Public Protector, we are joined in Parliament studios by Phepezile Dube, who is a political analyst. A very good morning to you, Ms. Dube, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, the Public Protector is the first occupier of that office to be subjected to such a probe into her fitness to hold office only after a year. Is it not too early, perhaps, to review the appointment of the Public Protector?
Well, I think we need to consider the facts that we currently have on hand. Firstly, we just need to consider the fact that she got the law very wrong, and that was a very a spectacular mistake to make. And also just bearing in mind her general conduct regarding the Absa Reserve Bank matter, just the fact that, first of all, she didn't give certain parties the right of reply. And secondly, the fact that she appeared to have consulted with the president. And bear in mind that one of the demands of her office is that she has to be acting independently. So, of course, there were questions as to why she would have consulted the president, and yet the president had absolutely nothing to do with the Absa Reserve Bank matter. But I think, on the other hand, one of the things that we also need to consider is just the sheer amount of work that she has done in the years since she's been in office. Of course, we need to admit the fact that with the Absa Reserve Bank, that was a monumental error to make. It was quite spectacular, the manner in which she got the law wrong. But on the other hand, she presented her annual report to Parliament just last week, and it was quite interesting, just the sheer volume of work that she appears to have done. So, for example, she's settled over 10,000 cases, you know, and these are the sort of cases that don't always make the news every single day, but she's been seemingly hard at work. And not just that, but she's also released 17 other reports, and of those 17 reports, I think 5 of them are under judicial review, including the Absa Reserve Bank matter. And she's also taken it upon herself to conduct a nationwide tour of the Public Protector's Office and just trying to bring the Public Protector's Office to the lives of ordinary South Africans. I think in her own terms, she calls them the Gogolaminis, but just trying to break down the work of the Public Protector just to make it accessible to ordinary South Africans on the street. So, of course, we need to balance up these two factors. You know, the fact that on the one hand, she appears to have done a tremendous amount of work, but on the one matter, the Absa Reserve Bank matter, she got the law spectacularly wrong, and it just seemed to imply the fact that she didn't seem to understand the demands of the role.
Now, that is very important, because people sometimes don't look at some of the successes of the current Public Protector. 10,000 cases, you're talking about 17 reports that's being reviewed. But did she not perhaps then overstep her boundary when she ordered Parliament to change the mandate of the South African Reserve Bank as part of that remedial action on the Absa Bank Corp report?
Yes, absolutely. There's no question of the fact that she overstepped her boundaries. And not just that, but it was the sort of error which even a first-year law student shouldn't be making, because it was really the sort of error which goes down to the heart of the separation of powers. How on earth does the Public Protector instruct Parliament to change the Constitution? That sort of error is the kind of error which is inexcusable if one considers, you know, just if we are to give her a degree of leeway. But even then, even when we do give her that degree of leeway, it's still the sort of mistake which is simply inexcusable.
Now, that recommendation by the Public Protector was deemed as a remarkable breach of the constitutionally enshrined doctrine of the separation of powers, which obviously prohibits the three arms of state from dictating to each other. So where does this leave the Public Protector now? Because they're calling for her head, some of the opposition parties.
Well, of course, in terms of both the Constitution as well as the Public Protectors Act, you can only remove the Public Protector from her office on 3 grounds. But first of all, you need a committee of the National Assembly to ascertain the facts. So she can only be removed if there's been misconduct or if there's been some kind of incompetence. And arguably in this matter, in the Absa Reserve Bank matter, that definitely is a ground for incompetence. And the third ground for her removal would be some kind of incapacity. So, for example, if she's got a long-term illness, which makes it impossible for her to come to work every single day, that would suffice. But obviously, this committee of the National Assembly, first of all, needs to sit down and deliberate on the facts and arrive at some kind of conclusion as to her incompetence. And then thereafter, it's really up to the National Assembly to pass a resolution for her removal, and that has to be supported by 2/3 of the members. But of course, at the end of the day, we need to bear in mind that the power lies with the committee of the National Assembly, and we also need to go into just break down the number of political parties that sit within this committee. And if it's going to be the Committee on Justice and Correctional, the Committee on Justice and Correctional Services, it stands to reason that you have the governing party, which has a majority of the numbers. So in that sense, it's really up to the majority party, it's really up to the governing party itself to determine the fate of the Public Protector, because they have the numbers. If they vote in their numbers to keep her in power, then she would survive the inquiry into her fitness to hold office.
Let's break it down. What are then the political as well as the economic implications of this imposition of the Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, the Public Protector?
Well, of course, we need to bear in mind, first of all, the recommendation that she had made with regard to changing the Constitution. I think there were some, I think the RAND, which is quite sensitive to these sort of issues, I think the RAND reacted quite violently in response to the Public Protector's recommendation that the mandate of the Reserve Bank should be changed. And not just that, but it does create a kind of political uncertainty, and it creates a rather uncertain investment climate for South Africa, in the sense that if we're not following through on due process, if we're not allowing the bodies that are themselves tasked in terms of the Constitution to be handling our Constitution or to be handling our economic and financial affairs, if we're allowing just anybody, including the Public Protector's Office, to be determining the fate of South Africa's economy, it obviously creates a very uncertain not just political environment, but also an uncertain economic environment. So these are really this is what's at stake for the Public Protector. Just the fact that her decisions, when she gets them wrong, they've got huge repercussions for the rest of the country. So it's not just about her being wrong on the law, it's about her having so much impact on the lives of ordinary people on the street.
There are those that suggest that touching the Reserve Bank and their mandate was a very sensitive point. It was almost like touching them on their studio. But where does it leave then the Public Protector in that case? And is it not perhaps bullying tactics within the Reserve Bank and others that is trying to protect their positions?
Well, that might be very much the case, but ultimately it is not for the Public Protector to be determining that kind of mandate. I mean, there are due processes that need to be followed if ever the country is going to be having a conversation about the mandate and the role of the Reserve Bank. And there are factors that need to be taken into account. You know, there has to be a public participation process. Experts need to weigh in on that. And, you know, ultimately it's really up to the Finance Minister himself to determine that kind of mandate. And it's a very sensitive topic. It's sensitive not just politically, but economically as well. And it's really not up to the Office of the Public Protector to determine South Africa's fate in that regard.
In closing, Will her successors perhaps override her imposition in relation to her fitness to hold office with regards to the Reserve Bank issue?
Well, certainly at this particular moment, it would appear as if the ABSA Reserve Bank is the one issue which clouds her overall work. Because as I mentioned in the beginning, ever since she came into the office, she has done a tremendous amount of work. And I think just in terms of building the public of the image of the Public Protector's Office, I think she's done a fairly decent job. But because she got the law so spectacularly wrong, it absolutely overshadows the few good things that she's done ever since she came into the office.
Ms. Dube, I thank you so much for your analysis.
Thank you.
That was Pepesile Dube, political analyst, on her take on the PP's fitness to hold office. What do you make of all of that? It's incredible, because some people are suggesting that some of the good work that the Public Protector has done up until now has been overlooked. What do you think? I'd like to get your thoughts. But we're asking you that question on the poll, of course. I'd like to find out from you where you're not. Do you think it's not too soon to part with the Public Protector? Let's take a look if we can put up our poll there and see what does the numbers suggest. There we go. 256 votes in. 75% of you are saying no. Only 25% is agreeing that it is too early to review the Public Protector's fitness to hold office. Let's now take a look at what's happening on social media in general on our Facebook page. And today we thought we'd share some news from our SABC blog with you. Here we are. The Police Minister Fikile Mbalula will be asking President Jacob Zuma to approve the deployment of the army to combat crime in the Western Cape and Gauteng. Hashtag Gauteng. Now, remember that when the DA requested this in the Western Cape, there was a problem. But then more police are expected to be deployed in Blytheville in the northwest following violent service delivery protests there. You can see some of the pictures coming through there in Blytheville, and we'll bring you up to date on that story as well. And then the death toll from yesterday's destructive storm in KwaZulu-Natal has risen to 6. Simply search for the SABC Newsroom on Facebook, and you can follow us on Twitter. If you like us on the Facebook page, you become part and parcel of this growing family here on the Newsroom. Some of the pictures there that you can see coming through from Durban. Let's now take a look at what's happening around the globe in the newspapers, and the front page is there. Starting off in Europe, the Times report that Britain will leave the European Union in March 2019. And they will also leave its customs union and its single market. Now, there you have it there and let's move over to New York, and the Wall Street Journal says that activist investor Nelson Peltz narrowly lost his bid to win a board seat at Procter & Gamble, but his campaign isn't going well, or going away rather, promising to keep pressure on P&G to change. Procter & Gamble, not KPMG, that like you know them here in South Africa, which is the auditors. And finally in China, the South China Morning Post reports that Hong Kong is planning to set up its first anti-terrorism task force drawn from the city's police and other law enforcement agencies to centralize intelligence gathering and sharing. Well, there you have it from the newspapers from around the globe. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back after that.
Andy, what did you make of the social media reaction to the news of the death of Makaka?
People are trying to grapple with the reasons why this is happening. I don't think that's being explained nearly enough.
Professor?
KZN has got a history of this factionalism.
Why are police not getting to the bottom of the scourge?
It's a national disaster that we still are dealing with political killings.
Professor Daniels, just who do you think is behind these killings then? Let me put you on the spot there.
The problems in this country started when the Scorpions were disbanded. And is that what we're going to be seeing now, deaths? deaths, smear campaigns and stuff like that. It's got to stop.
Stay tuned to Media Monitor and catch on analysts unpacking top stories every Sunday from 9 a.m.
Well, today we discuss the general practitioner or GP.
So the quality of the doctors coming through our medical schools is excellent.
Your GP is your family doctor. Your GP is your first point of care.
Who determines how much a consultation fee should be?
We set up networks of general practitioners, and one of the conditions of the network was to agree to charge a certain fee.
Specialists are specialists. We can't take away their role. We can't take away what they do for each patient in their disease entity.
Our specialist colleagues as well don't appreciate patients coming straight off the street, as it were, to see them. They're highly trained.
For health tips that will help you to adopt healthy living, catch Health Talk every Saturday from 9 to 10.
Let's now return to our main story this morning. Earlier, our reporter Mlungisi Kumalo spoke to Governance and Traditional Affairs spokesperson Lennox Mabasu about the damage in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and this is what he had to say.
The damage is quite extensive, as you can see, with this incident in front of us. We have incidents being reported not only in Durban, but in the areas of the south coast as well, also in some parts of our inland districts of the province. Of course, the epicenter of this incident appears to be Durban and the south coast areas. So you can see that our disaster teams have been hard at work. We have worked throughout the night to ensure that we clear the roads so that people can wake up and go to work. But the impact is still palpable every time you drive around the areas of Montclair, you drive around the areas of Umlazi, Dalton, the south coast, and other areas towards Motu.
Just to roughly sum up everything, when I spoke to you yesterday, you said the province is not yet declared a disaster zone. Why is that?
Well, today the team of MECs responsible for disaster management, as directed by the Premier of the province, Premier Willis Mkhunu, will be leading relief efforts and conducting assessment, physical assessment of the damage in all the affected areas. They will then also release the interim report. As you have quite correctly said, there is a media briefing that is scheduled for 9 o'clock, which will take place at Prince Msheni Hospital. One of the hospitals that are affected. Will be visiting also King Edward Hospital and communities that are displaced at this point in time. Also involving the mayor of eThekwini, Mayor Zandile Kumede. So upon that assessment, there will then be some thorough work that is done, and it is when the report is submitted before the Premier of the province and the provincial executive that the declaration will be considered based on the facts and figures that are being brought forward and the impact that has been assessed and analyzed.
Just before we go back to the studio, Mr. Lennox Mabasu, we know that this province not so long ago was declared a disaster zone because of the droughts that we had. Now, yesterday we had extensive rain in the province. Will that have a positive impact on a lighter note?
Well, as you will be aware that we are recovering from a severe drought that we have seen in decades. We welcome these rains. Unfortunately, it is the tragedy that they bring along that is making us very sad. But in terms of our drought relief efforts, they are welcome because, they are addressing one of the serious challenges that we have been battling for the past 3 years. But of course, now we have got to deal with the consequences because of the nature in which they arrive, which was violent storms, which have wreaked havoc in the province. But we are also, as the week goes by, because now we are concentrating on relief efforts and responding to the disaster incident and bringing life back to normalcy. Once that is done, we are also going to give an indication of how much has been the impact of these rains on the drought situation in the province.
Well, on that note, we'll keep you posted as to what is happening there. But Ozzy is standing by with your weather forecast to tell you more whether or not you can expect more rain in Durban or perhaps here in Gauteng and around the country.
Thanks very much and warm welcome. Well, you can expect more rainfall tomorrow over the coastal regions of KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape. But for today, we're only seeing partly cloudy skies just far along the coastal regions. Moving to the interior, clear skies can be expected. Over most parts of South Africa, we are expecting clear skies for today and over most parts of SADC as well. But over Western Cape, we have another cold front that's making its way, bringing 30% chance of showers along the coastal regions for today. So please do expect an afternoon development. Partly cloudy skies going to the interior, and we're still expecting 30% chance of showers over the northern parts of Angola. And we do have a warning of gale force winds along the coastal regions of KwaZulu-Natal all the way to Maputo from Durban. So please do take note of that for today. Tomorrow, we're seeing 60% chance of showers along the coastal regions of KwaZulu-Natal. Durban is included in those regions, and 30% chance over the interior. Along the coastal Eastern Cape going to Western Cape and the interior, 30% chance. But South Africa on its own, we are expecting clear skies over most parts and just partly cloudy over the eastern parts. And for SADC, we're seeing clear skies due to a high pressure system that's making its way over the interior of SADC, and we are expecting 30% chance of showers over the interior of Zambia, going to the interior of DRC for tomorrow. Your temperatures will be at 24 in Pretoria and 25 for Polokwane. Partly cloudy skies over the eastern parts of Limpopo and the interior of Mpumalanga. KwaZulu-Natal, Durban, partly cloudy skies reaching a maximum of 21. Moving to the interior, clear skies can be expected. Free State, we're seeing Bloemfontein at 22, NDR, Uppington at a maximum of 28 degrees. Going to the southern parts, a maximum of 20 is forecast for the city of Cape Town, and Sutherland will sit at 23. Springbok, you are at a maximum of 26, and clear skies expected for today. Over Botswana, we're still expecting clear skies over the interior. Temperatures high in the 20s to low 30s. Francistown at a maximum of 30 and 34 for Victoria Falls. Harare at 28. Along the coastal regions of Mozambique, 30% chance of thunder showers can be expected, with Nampula at 32. Maputo sitting at a maximum of 25. Over the western parts, we're seeing Walvis Bay sitting at a maximum of 20 and 23. Windhoek sitting at a maximum of 29, and clear skies due to that high pressure system making its way over the interior. Over Madagascar, still expecting very isolated showers over the eastern parts, going to the northern parts with 60% chance of thunder showers over the northern parts. Moroni will be at 30 with partly cloudy skies. Sunny skies in Port Louis with a maximum of 27. DRC, partly cloudy skies over the southern parts, but as you start to move to the interior, it gets isolated and scattered in the northern parts. Just stretching to the far northern interior of Angola, we are expecting 60% chance of thunder showers. Luanda at a maximum of 28, 30% chance of showers in Lusaka with a maximum of 33. And we're seeing sunny skies in Dar es Salaam, a maximum of 32. Thunder showers expected over the northern parts. Juba at a maximum of 24 degrees. Over the northern parts, still expecting clear skies over most parts of the Sahara Desert. But moving to the interior and the southern parts, we are expecting up to 60% chance of thunder showers over most parts of Cameroon, going to the interior of DRC. Central Republic, isolated thunder showers for today, and along the coastal regions, going to the far western parts. And again, clear skies with few clouds along the coastal regions of Libya for today and tomorrow, but it will remain clear for most parts. Again, over Cameroon, 60% chance of thunder showers expected for tomorrow, and Gabon as well. But along the coastal regions, it will remain at 30% chance of thunder showers. And moving to Morocco, just partly cloudy skies and nothing much can be expected. Your temperatures remain very high in most parts. Khartoum at a maximum of 40, 22 for Addis Ababa with 30% chance of thunder showers. Moving to the western parts, we're seeing Agadez at a maximum of 40 degrees. Tripoli sitting at 28 and mostly sunny skies. Tunis over the northern parts, we're seeing sunny skies with a maximum of 25. Bangui at a maximum of 29 and 30 to 60% chance of thunder showers forecast for today. And moving along the coastal regions, Nigeria, Lagos at 29 degrees, and over Abidjan up to 30% chance of thunder showers. Moving to the interior, the far northern parts of Nigeria, we just seeing partly cloudy skies, as you can see over Niamey, a maximum of 40, and clear skies over the northern parts, mostly going to the Sahara Desert. Marrakech sitting at 35 and 30 for Rabat. Dakar, Senegal, a maximum of 30 is forecast today to 31. Bamako, very hot conditions expected, a maximum of 37 degrees with mostly sunny skies. That is all from the weather desk. Ndaoyendo.
Well, thank you, Ozzy, for that update there. Now, hearings into the Life Esidimeni tragedy have resumed yesterday. In fact, today, Levi Mosonogi was the second witness yesterday to take the stand. Let's go there live.
About some of the people who were from Vetport were taken to Bani.
Can you put a date to that?
Hello?
Can you put a date to that?
It was before my time, so I can't put the date.
So are you saying that that was in the time that the marathon project was running, that adults went there? Is that what you're saying?
It was the time when the marathon project came after. That time it was when Dr. Manamela was responsible. It was a phased move.
Let me put it in another way. This was before the contract, or adults were moved to Maneng after the contract with Life was closed. Can we put it in that way, just to get a time frame?
If my memory serves me, it was before the contract was closed.
Sorry?
If my memory serves me well, it was before the contract was terminated.
Okay. We will look into that. Who are at that center at the moment? Do you know?
Hello?
Who are at that center at the moment? Are there children there? Are there adults there? Do you know?
Mainly, Bani was for children, people who are intellectually disabled.
Yes, sir. I'm asking at this stage, do you know which patients are there at this stage? Are there children now there? Are there adults? Do you know?
The children were not removed, and who are the other people? I'm not sure. I haven't been part of the process now.
Mm-hmm. At some stage, further adults were taken to Baneng. Isn't that right?
Yes, but it was before my time.
Did anybody die at Mbek?
I don't remember. I'm not sure.
You see, I looked at the list that was provided by the Umbud, and I couldn't find any children dying on that list.
Okay.
But I'm informed by my learned colleagues that they're representing people that died there. That is not yet on the list.
Yeah, I'm not clear about that.
Okay, can I just walk off from Baneng now and speak to you about the ID documents? Am I correct to say that the ID documents were important to you to obtain ID documents for the mental health care users, because that will give them access ultimately into SASSA grounds?
Yes.
That was the reason that you wanted the ID numbers of each patient.
But also to know people, to identify people, because there were people who were long in the Life Esidimeni and they have lost contact with their families. So it was going to make it easier to trace their families also.
How is that? How is that?
There was a team that was tasked to do that.
My question is, how will the ID number help to trace the family?
Because at least then you know the person. Who is the person, then you are able to...
I don't understand that. Sorry, could you just explain that to me?
The ID number is your identity as a person. It has a surname and a name. So you are able to know where to start when you trace people.
Are you saying that there were people there as mental health care users that didn't have a name and a surname?
They have been there and they have lost contact and they didn't have IDs.
Sir, my question is, are you saying there were people without names and surnames as healthcare users in the facilities?
There were people who did not recall where they come from, who they are.
So I'm going to ask again, are you saying that there are people who didn't have names or surnames in the hospitals or in the facilities?
Councillor, I can't answer that directly because I was not involved with the nitty-gritties.
Well, I don't understand that because one of your projects were to get ID numbers.
Yes.
So what are you saying? I'm just trying to understand. I'm not trying to be funny to you. I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
Council, the project was a multi-project. It had different. It was a very complex project. So we had appointed technical people to deal with different aspects. So I could not be involved in all these aspects. So I can't give you a straight answer.
What I'm just trying to establish is my question to you was, you needed an ID number to access a SASSA grant, and you said, no, we needed that to get the family members.
No, I didn't say no. I said it will also assist with the identification. It needed for grant purposes and also for identification.
But you say you don't know whether any of them were unidentified, because if you look at the list of the deceased people, there are still quite a number without ID numbers.
Yes.
And they are identified.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to understand why you needed the ID numbers.
I accept that. We needed mainly because people needed to have grants.
Yes, that was my initial statement to you.
But I did not object to that.
And the reason that you wanted them to have SASSA grants is that you wanted them to pay their SASSA grants to the NGO to supplement the amount paid by the government to the NGO. Isn't that so?
That's what I said yesterday, that the SASSA grants also supplemented the funds.
So if you were to move somebody without an ID number and without a SASSA grant to an NGO, that the income of the NGO is not going to be supplemented by that person's SASSA grant. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
So if you move somebody without an ID number, without a SASSA grant, you're acting irresponsibly because you know you're causing financial problems to the NGO. Isn't that so?
If it has happened, I think...
So you were the project manager. You knew who had ID numbers. You knew who had SASSA grants. If you've moved a person without that in place, that was irresponsible. Don't you agree with me?
Council, being a project manager doesn't mean you know everything all the time. You get given information, you process information.
Okay, let me try again. You knew that this was a cost-saving exercise. So finances were important to you, isn't that so?
Yes.
And if finances were important to you, you would have known it would be important to the NGOs.
Yes.
And that would mean you would make sure that the NGOs get all the money that they needed to protect these mental health users. Isn't that so?
Yes.
So then, as your project manager, you would make sure that everybody had an ID number and a SASSA grant to make sure that they don't suffer at the NGOs. Isn't that so?
Yes.
Therefore, I put it to you, it was irresponsible to move any person without an ID number and a SASSA grant to an NGO. Do you agree with me?
Yes, if it has happened, it's irresponsible.
Thank you.
But why did it happen? You've just told us it was irresponsible, but why did you allow it to happen?
Justice, I'm not aware that it has happened. That's why I say if it has happened.
No, you gave us a schedule yesterday of categories of people, and from memory, over 500 of them had no IDs.
Yes.
And nonetheless, the contract was terminated and these people were moved. Is that correct? You've already conceded to that.
Yes, but I'm...
now the question is, why did you not only delay in paying the NGOs, send them people with no grants? Why didn't you prevent that happening?
Chief Justice, the people who were, we had other facilities, state facilities to send them to, we should have sent them to the state facilities. Vesco-based Sterfante.
Why didn't you do that? That's, I'm really following up on the point that you're debating with council.
Yes.
It's a logical question. You haven't done it. People were sent without grants. You told us yesterday you delayed 3 to 4 months to pay the NGOs. And really the underlying question of Advocate Krause is it was irresponsible to do that because that would threaten the lives of the patients concerned. My question inevitably is, why didn't you heed that? Why did you do something irresponsible?
My answer to that, Justice, is that I wasn't aware that they were moved to NGOs, the ones without ID, because the provision was that they were, the people needed to, we had other facilities to move them to.
Thank you, Justice. Can I move on to the service level agreements? You are, as a project manager, or were no doubt aware that in order to receive payment, there should have been a valid service level agreement between the NGOs and the government. Is that so?
Yes.
So if a person was moved to an NGO without a valid service level agreement, then no money would have been paid over to that NGO. Is that right?
Yes.
So if you moved people to an NGO without a service level agreement, chances are that the patients would suffer because there wouldn't be money coming in. Is that so?
Yes.
So in sending patients to an NGO without a service level agreement, that would be irresponsible. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
And do you agree with me that that happened?
Hello?
That happened. People were sent to NGOs where there weren't signed service level agreements.
Yes, that's why I agreed that it's a mistake. Mistakes crept in, happened.
Yes, but mistakes happened because leaders don't look at things. You knew this was something to be in place, so I want to put it to you, you were irresponsible for not checking that this was in place. Do you agree with me?
As the leader of the project team, maybe, yeah. I can't say much. I can't agree against it.
Yes. And no service level agreement.
I'm sorry, I just didn't get that answer on record. You said as the leader of the project what?
Of the team.
Yes.
Yes.
You accept that you were irresponsible? Is that the answer?
As well, I've checked more to ensure that these things have happened, but...
Yes. Thank you.
Justice, it was a complex process. It was a lot of things, and sometimes when you look back, we could have done things better.
Now, I just want to put it to you, with no service level agreement and no SASSA grant, these patients were left in a very, very difficult position. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
Now, Can I just understand your reasoning? You just told Justice Moseneke now that looking back, you should have done things differently. Now, before the move of any patient, would you agree with me that we've already agreed that the SASSA grant should have been in place? Just answer, please.
Yes.
And we agreed that the service level agreement had to be in place.
That was a requirement, yes.
And would you agree with me that there had to be a medical assessment of each patient?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that there should have been medical information available on each patient?
Yes.
Or this is all still before the move?
Yes.
Do you agree with me that the medical information on each patient, there should have been a proper handover to the NGO?
Yes.
And for that, you no doubt knew that the patient's medical file would be very necessary.
Yes.
Did you ensure that the files went to the NGOs?
The council, there was a task team that has clinicians and the mental health unit who were tasked to do that work. And I think we had dedicated doctors who were assisting us. If I remember well, there were 2 doctors who were assisting us to ensure that when they discharge patient, they have checked through the patient and they are satisfied that they could write a discharge slip. We had a problem with Life Esidimeni because they were reluctant to release the whole record, the patient record.
Okay, I'm going to get back to your answer just in a moment. You referred to 2 doctors. Who were they?
Dr. Wadala and the other was, they were part of, they were assisting us with that.
What? Could you just spell the first name, please?
Dr. Wadala.
Could you spell that?
W-A-D-A-L-A.
And the second?
And the other one I don't remember, but we had 2 doctors who were asked to assist.
So as the project manager, did you oversee that process?
The project team, the sub-project team on clinical services and were the ones responsible to oversee that.
I'm going to ask my question again. As project manager, did you oversee that process?
On a non-clinical basis, I did oversee it, but clinically it was overseen by clinical people.
So you would have called for a list to make sure that each patient, before it was transferred, has been seen by a doctor, and you would have checked what was said by the doctor about this patient. Is that so?
The mental health team and the clinician were the ones who were checking that, not me personally.
Did you have a list, sir, to see whether those things were done?
No, I didn't have that list, but I was assured that it's happening.
As project manager, why did you not check that that happened?
The council, the project was running and it has different task teams. Maybe I must explain. And I was also responsible for other tasks. So I thought that one is a clinical, it needed clinical experts, and those are the ones who were assisting us on that.
So your short answer is, I didn't oversee that. Now, in your answer that I want to come back, you use an interesting word. You said there were 2 doctors discharging these patients.
Not overseeing the discharge of this patient.
That word is an interesting word because it comes back often in the papers, isn't it?
Yes.
Section 22, Section 27 has called this transfers. We have called it transfers from life to the NGOs. You've heard that?
What?
We call the process a transfer or a move or a relocation.
Yes.
You've heard that?
We call it, I think we were calling it placement.
Or you can call it a placement, but you've used the word discharge now.
Yeah.
Did you discharge them?
Discharge is the, okay, maybe you are now becoming technical. I think we are using it in the more lay person's ability, the way I used it, but you are becoming technical. It was a discharge because the doctors has to assess so that we are able to know the condition of the patient, whether he needs to go to the hospital or to the NGO or to so basically that's when I spoke of assessment. This is what I was saying.
And you check that process, sir. Who must be discharged and who must go to other medical places? Or you're just using the word discharge as a general term now?
Yes, as a general term.
So you would agree with me that most of those patients, mental health users, wouldn't in 3 months be so healthy that they can be discharged? There wasn't a general miracle that South Africa knew about that all the mental health users just overnight became cured.
I think the premise which I think if Dr. Manamela and a team were here will explain it better. I can't explain it better than that.
I will come back to the discharge in a while, sir. Can I just, before I move off from this point, did you see that there was a doctor to doctor or doctor to healthcare transfer of the information of each patient? From where the patient was held to where the patient was moved? Was there a clinician giving over information about this patient?
Physically, I was not at the facilities all the time when people were being moved. But when I visited some of the facilities in Ramfante, I will engage with the responsible doctor, and she will tell me, and the nurses, they will tell me what they are doing and how the process is going.
Are you talking about doctors and nurses? Were there doctors and nurses at all the NGOs?
No, I mean at the facility from Life Esidimeni to move them. When we were placing people, I will go to like maybe Ramfante, and I will get a report from the doctor.
And that is not the question. The question is, were you physically there to oversee the handover of medical records from Life Esidimeni, on the one hand, to NGOs who would be taking on patients?
As a individual, it would have not been possible justice because there were people tasked to do that. So I was not there physically.
And you haven't asked to check that? You haven't asked for a spreadsheet to check that that has happened?
No, I didn't ask for
Did you go to Anchor Home to see whether there were doctors and nurses?
What?
Anchor Home?
Anchor Home. No, I haven't visited Anchor Home.
And Precious Angels?
I visited only after that have occurred.
Did you see any doctors or nurses there?
No, the NGOs do not require to have doctors in the facility.
And did you check whether the patients needed medical assistance there?
What is required in the NGO is a professional nurse to oversee, and then healthcare workers, and connection with a public facility, a clinic.
But the question is, did you check whether there would be medical care available for the transferred patients?
Justice, the medical care available for patients in the NGOs, which is a practice, is that they are linked with the nearest hospital and the nearest clinic. So if there are problems,
in fact, that was available. That is what council is asking.
It was available in terms of the linkage that was there between the clinics and but the doctors are not expected to be in the NGOs. That's not what is required.
Sir, this is perhaps not something to raise with you, but medicine, or let me start it this way. We have the health facilities being in 3 categories. You've got a district, you've got an institution that gives training, and you've got your ground level. You've got your district, your regional, and your facilities that give training.
Yes.
Do you agree with me?
Yes.
Now, your lowest level would be your clinics.
Community-based services will be our lowest level.
But those clinics don't have medicine that will fit the which we will call psychiatric drugs. That needs to be prescribed by a psychiatric hospital. And that needs to be done beforehand. Did you know about that?
Yes.
Did you arrange that the clinics where these patients would go would have access to the correct medication?
That's why I had clinical experts in my team. They were able to do that.
Did they do it, sir?
We ensured that the first thing what we ensured is that when they are released from life Esidimeni, they needed to have a package of treatment that they are receiving. That's why we needed doctors to oversee that.
Now the question is a very direct one. Did you ensure that the doctors actually do it? That is what you are being asked. You heard, and patients need to be transferred with medication.
Yes.
And with their prescriptions, even if they go to NGOs.
Yes.
Did you make sure or take steps to ensure that that happens? That's what question it is. Not what usually happens. Did you ensure in this case?
The project team ensured that.
Sir, can you say that under oath that happened?
It should have happened.
No, I'm not asking whether it should have happened. I say you under oath. You say the project team have done that. As project manager, can you under oath say that it did happen?
I can't say that.
Thank you. I'm going to move over now to the move itself. Who arranged the moves of these mental health care users? Who arranged the transport?
We used the EMS to assist us with transport.
Just assist me, what is EMS?
Emergency medical services. Our emergency medical services were tasked to assist and support the project with transport.
Would you refer to those as ambulances?
Yes, or ambulances and patient transport and all the transport needs that can move patients.
Okay. Did you use any other service provider?
Some NGOs were having resources. They used their own combis to do that. Those who were having resources like combis.
Any buses used?
And buses, yes.
Who paid for the buses?
The EMS buses. We used EMS buses.
Not public buses?
I'm not sure of that one.
Okay.
If it was used, it was not used by, I don't know, but I was not in every situation.
Okay, and did you use bakkies?
To my knowledge, I didn't know that we use bakkies. I read about it.
Why is it that you don't know that, sir?
Because it was never part of the plan.
Yes, I can understand that, because that would be totally irresponsible. But as a project manager, you know I have to move close to 2,000 patients. For 2,000 patients, I need transport, and this is how I'm going to do it. So how did you think this was going to happen?
through the EMS, we have enough transport, ambulances, patient transport, combis, under EMS, even buses. So there was no need to think that somebody can use a van to do that.
With who did you arrange with the EMS? With who did you speak there?
The chief of EMS was part of the project team. He was tasked to do
Just give us
to assist us.
Sorry, sir. Could you give us a name, please?
Mr. Malotana.
Could you spell that for us, please?
Mr. Malotana. Malotana.
Is he part of the emergency services?
He's the head of the emergency services. So if there are problems, people will phone me and say, we have problems. I will phone Mr. Malotana and make sure that they are able to assist.
What type of problems did people phone you with, sir?
People will complain that the patients are ready, there's no transport, and then they'll phone me, and then I will request Mr. Malotana to assist.
Any other problems?
That's it.
But was there a written logistics plan? If there was, would you give us a copy of that?
For the transportation?
Yes. Was there a plan on how to move 1,700 patients?
It was not a written plan, but it was made. That's why Mr. Malotana was part of the task team to assist us with the transport logistics.
The answer is there was no written plan.
I presume that he should be having a written plan, but I haven't seen it.
But did you have a written plan?
No, I didn't have.
Let's go back to the question of bakkies. I saw your interview with the public and with the Ombud. Were open bakkies used?
Yes, I was informed that there were open bakkies used, but it was not with my knowledge.
And patients had to be tied?
Patients had to be?
Patients had to be tied. Their limbs had to be tied whilst transported. Do you know about that?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
But it appears
at that time.
It appears in the Ombuds report.
Yes.
You've heard about that?
Yes, I heard about it after the release.
Did you investigate what happened and where?
After the Ombudsman's report.
After the transfer, you've come to hear that there were patients in open bakkies who are mentally ill and who were tied up and driven to NGOs. Did you go back and say, I'm the project head? What happened here?
But Justice, I was not aware of that during the
I say after the incident. You say you heard it only after. Did you go back and look, and can you enlighten us? Because we see it in the Ombuds report, and we want to know from you, the man who ordered the transfer, what happened? Even if you heard it later, what are the facts?
No, I didn't go back because after everything has happened, Justice, the way things were in the department, nobody was talking to each other. You know, we were all shocked, and I think maybe we did not have even a briefing.
Would we ever have ordered mentally ill patients to be transported in open bakkies?
No, I would not have done that.
And tied up? Would you ever order that?
No, I would not have done that. And even if I knew, I would have intervened appropriately. But at that time, I didn't know.
Council.
Thank you, Justice. I'm going now to just take you through the timeline just to make sure that I understand how this timeline works. So if you could just assist us. You were approached on the 5th of November for the first time.
Yes.
At that stage, the project was already in its being. Who was the project manager at that stage?
I don't think there was. I don't think there was a named project manager. I think it was because Dr. Manamela is the head of the directorate. It was given to the directorate, so they were operating it as a directorate.
We know that already in September, the 22nd of September, Dr. Manamela signed a draft plan. So it was long before you were there. Do you agree with me?
27 September of?
22nd September of 2015, the draft plan was signed. That was before you?
Yeah, I was not part of that. Yeah.
But you say there were no project manager?
No, I say there was no named project manager. It was run under the directorate of Dr. Manamela.
Okay.
So it means Dr. Manamela was the overall head.
And on the 29th of September 2015, Life Esidimeni was given termination notice. That was also before you were approached to be a project manager.
Yes.
Then you established a team. Is that right?
Yes.
When was your team established?
The letter that I received, I did write for Dr. Silibano after clearing with him what he expects from me. I did write a list of nominees.
The question requires a date.
Yes, I just want to put the context to it, Justice.
Sure.
I did write the list of nominees that people who can serve in the team, and I submitted to the Office of the Chief Director. I did receive mine it was signed on the 9th December 2015, my letter that appointed me, and then I sent it off on the 10th. So most of the people who were suggested also signed on the 10th of December.
So would it be safe to say that on the 10th of December, nearly just over a month after you were first approached, you had a team in place?
Yes.
So would it then be safe to say that at that stage you started working?
Yeah, I started my work in terms of going to the facilities to see what is that is needed. So I did do my visits.
Okay, we know from the Ombuds report that you went to Waverley, Randfontein, and Banenge.
Yeah, alone.
Was that after the 10th of December?
Yes.
And you knew at Waverley and Randfontein you didn't get good reception at all?
No. First of all, I did my initial visit with the mental health unit. They took me to the different facilities just for me to know the situation. That was my visit, not with the executive. And I did meet the CEOs of the different facilities, and they took me around.
You say after the 10th,
yes.
10 December 2015?
If I remember well, it was after. But I will have to check whether it was.
Where can you check, sir?
I don't see the paper. I don't see the document that I noted. But I did visit initially alone with the mental health unit.
Okay. Can you tell us when the volatile meetings took place at Waverley and Randfontein?
Those were after we have had our meeting with the MEC, and it was agreed that we'll have to visit the facilities.
I'm just trying to get a timeline, sir. Was it in the beginning of December? Was it in the end of December? When was these volatile meetings?
Okay. Council, can I?
If you don't know, say so.
Can I come back to you in terms of the dates? But we did visit.
Yes, thank you.
Can I come back with the dates?
So, is it safe to?
Yes. Before you move, why were the meetings in Randfontein turbulent? What were the people unhappy about?
Both meetings at Waverley and Randfontein were not very good meetings. The interaction was volatile, and people were not happy of the move.
Let's start off which people?
The patient, the families, and the representatives of the families who were in those meetings, because the meetings was a sort of a mass meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
And they told you so, that they are unhappy.
They told us all.
Yes.
Yeah.
With whom were you?
At Waverley, the first meeting we were with the MEC.
Was MEC there?
Yeah, we were yes. Part of the delegation with the MEC. Mm. That was a very tough meeting. I initially chatted, but she took over. It was volatile. People were angry. People were raising their concerns and their issues. I remember even the vet students were there because they were training. Occupational therapy students were also, because it was going to disrupt their academic thing. They did raise issues. So a lot of people raised issues. That's how, out of that meeting, we agreed that they must elect a family committee, and they did at Waverley. The same thing at Randfontein. It was volatile. The MEC was not there at Randfontein. It was the HOD who was chairing. I was assisting him to chair, and people were robust also, and telling us about the experience of their patients at home and all those things. They did raise issues, very difficult issues, very emotional issues. And that's where, if you read the ombudsman's report, myself and HOD had to step aside after the meeting and said, this is not really a good thing. This is not a very good thing.
And you and the HD, according to the Ombud, were of the view that cancelling the LE contract, the Life Esidimeni contract, was not the correct decision.
Yes, it was my
After those two meetings, you were convinced it was not the correct decision.
Yes, I had. Myself as a person, I had a foreboding in terms of this project, So when we discussed, I found that the HOD also has serious yeah, he had also problems with that.
And you were aware and knew then, and you and the HOD talked about the fact that you did not have enough beds, isn't it? You thought you needed about 2,000 beds, isn't it? Which you did not have.
Yes, I think at the first meeting, people played around and said they will be able to get 2,000 beds. But when we had a meeting, you remember yesterday I said I attended a meeting where Dr. Manamala had called NGOs and the districts, and we looked at every district where these beds are, only to find that the beds are planned. They are not there in actual sense.
And you expressed the view that you thought the MEC was misled to want to push ahead with something which was obviously opposed by the patients, by their families, by young students who were training at those facilities.
Yes.
And you thought the MEC was misled to want to go ahead with this. Is that correct?
That was my opinion. And still my opinion that maybe if the correct details were outlined.
And at the time, it is reported that you have the view that you and the HOD rather work with Section 27, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, SADC, and the South African Society of Psychiatrists to build trust and to suspend, in order to get them to suspend the court action. That was your view, right?
That was part of the meeting that we had with Section 27 and the other stakeholders.
And you communicated your concerns to the MEC, did you? You told the MEC this plan will not work. Did you?
Yes, I did. I did communicate my views, and I did try to suggest alternative approaches to the issue. And I did highlight the concerns that families had, because regularly I was also meeting with it was my task also to meet with the family
Now,
committees.
knowing all of that
Yes.
you knew at the time,
Yes.
why didn't you go and tell somebody else other than the MEC? You used the word foreboding, a beautiful word.
Yes.
Hmm?
Justice, on my personal...
Yes. So you've got a discomfort that something terrible might happen.
Yes, I had that discomfort. And
Right, and why?
I did raise it on my individual basis, personal basis. I did raise it in my prayer meetings and ask people to pray. I did raise it in my prayer is important for me. It's something that carries me.
Shall we give
Please
the
don't
witness
laugh
an
it.
opportunity,
Yeah.
please?
And also I did raise it in my organization, in my branch, as a branch leader. I did raise it with other fellow comrades. But
why didn't you raise it with
what I didn't do,
somebody more senior than the MEC and say, we're getting into a disaster? Instead, you go ahead with a plan to transfer people. You go and get EMS to help you. You don't check properly whether medication has been moved on.
We talked with the HOD.
You don't ensure that they have grants.
Yes.
And you go ahead with a plan that was going to be very dangerous to vulnerable people.
I should have done that. I have done that on
Why didn't you do it? Why
personal
didn't you tell
level.
the Premier? Why didn't you tell another MEC? Why didn't you tell your comrades? I don't know who you mean by your comrades, but why didn't you tell them?
I did communicate with my comrades and...
Comrades where?
In the branch and also in the province. I
In the
did
branch-
raise issues.
Which branch is that?
My branch.
Of the political movement of
Yes,
the African National
yes,
Congress?
Yes.
And did you tell the provincial leadership? of this impending disaster?
I did raise it with, not in an informal basis, not formally. I think I should have raised it formally. I think that was the bit. I should have done that on a formal basis.
And after all said and done...
And also I should have raised it with the Premier.
Yes.
I did not do that.
You did not do that?
Yes.
Instead, you forged straight ahead with a plan
and
that resulted in at least 118 deaths.
And Council, when I was meeting with the family, because we had regular meetings with the family committees, they did really lambast us, and I did advise them and appeal to them that this is democracy. Why don't you go, as a family, you've got the right to go and knock at the door of the MEC. You've got the right to go to the Premier and to the, they will be able to listen to you maybe. I did try to ask them to do that, but...
Why didn't you do it?
I don't know why I didn't do that. I'm always forthright, but this time I don't know why I didn't do that.
Counsel.
Thank you, Justice. Who misled the MEC?
It was my opinion that maybe if she had full knowledge of the enormity of the situation, maybe she would have reconsidered.
Yes,
it was my opinion.
I hear your opinion, but saying somebody was misled, somebody must mislead that person. So who was the person that misled the MEC?
I was not referring to... My opinion was that she didn't get all the details, correct details.
And who was responsible to give her the correct details?
All of us, senior managers.
So are you saying you misled the MEC?
No.
I just want to understand what you mean, sir.
I have confronted the MEC several times. I can't be misleading them.
So are you saying the MEC was not misled because you gave her all the correct information?
Yeah, if you read my documents, I did highlight the concerns of people. I did provide alternatives. And I did manage to convince the HOD to also of my opinions, and he bought into my opinions.
So are you saying that the MEC was not misled because you gave her all the information?
That's why I say it was my opinion.
I'm just trying to understand what your opinion was, sir.
My opinion was that maybe he didn't get.
But didn't you give her all the information? It's an easy question, sir. Did you give her all the information?
Yeah, in my own thinking, I did.
Yes. So she couldn't have been misled. Isn't that so?
I don't know why you want me to say that, because it was an opinion at that time.
But it's no longer your opinion, is it? Because you said you gave her all the information, so she couldn't have been misled.
Yes, in the context of the beds that was said to be there, I think it was an error.
Can you just explain that, sir? I didn't hear.
Originally, when she was presented that 2,000 beds are available.
Who presented her with that, sir?
By the team.
What team?
Mental health unit team. Only to find that when we call the NGOs, some of the beds are not actual. They still have to renovate. They still have to get extra beds to make the 2,000 beds that are needed.
Okay, but you knew that, and she knew that before the en masse move took place. Do you agree?
Yes.
So there couldn't have been any misleading at that stage?
Yes.
Thank you. I want to go back to my timeline. From the 5th of November 2015, when you were approached to run this project, until the 10th of December, when your team was ready to proceed, did you attend any meetings?
Yes, I did attend to familiarize myself with the project. I did attend meetings. I did attend Dr. Manemela's clinical mental health unit meeting.
And you attended meetings with the South African Depression and Anxiety group?
That's what I call the stakeholders meetings.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that was in November 2015. And they expressed very serious views that this project
Yeah,
can't go around.
Yes, they did.
And you were aware of that by the 10th when you put your team, 10th December 2015 when you put your team
No,
together?
I think the meeting was on the 21st December.
So there was a meeting with them on the 23rd of November 2015.
Yeah, 23rd.
There was one again on the 7th of December 2015. Were you part of both of these meetings?
The 7th.
Yes, sir. 7 December 2015. It's 3 days before your task team was up and running according to you.
Maybe can you refer me to the page?
Yes, sure. It's on page 998 of the record, and that is... that's file 3. It will be the first page in that file, sir. Is it? Sir, it seems to me I've misled you about the doc. Are we talking about the 7th? The meeting of the 7th is on page 113, sir. Sorry, I misled you. And that's file 1.
One three.
113.
File 1.
You see paragraph 45.1 there. I'm merely trying to know whether you were part of that meeting. Were you part of that meeting, sir?
I'm not sure.
You don't know?
I'm not sure whether I was part of
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm not sure that I was part
You're
of
not
this
sure?
meeting, unless if you can refer me somewhere.
Were you aware of the... I'll move on from that if you're not aware. On the 9th of December, it's the day before your task team was up and running, there was a letter to the department that a curator ad litem should be appointed for the patients. That's 9 December 2015. Were you aware of that letter?
The letter from where?
From section 27.
Yes.
That they asked that a curator ad litem be appointed for the patients.
I don't remember.
You don't remember such a letter? Did it not come to your attention?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
What would have been your attitude had you known that they wanted a curator ad litem appointed? Do you understand what the curator is?
I have a vague idea what the curator
Somebody
is.
to oversee.
Yeah, to oversee the
Yes.
project.
What would have been your attitude?
I think we did discuss it in the meeting that we had with the stakeholders.
So you were aware of it?
On the 23rd meeting, which was chaired by the HOD, they did talk about the curator as part of the settlement that they wanted.
Sorry, sir, I couldn't hear. What meeting are you saying?
I said we did discuss it as part of the settlement discussions that we had with SADC and the other team members.
When was that, sir? When did you have that meeting? Do you know? Because their letter was on the 9th of December, 2015.
On the 23rd, I think, 23rd or 21, yeah. We did discuss those issues.
So that was after Section 27 had already served on you the urgent application.
Yeah, and that's why we had that meeting, because Section 27, I remember it was there. Kasi from SADC was there, and all the other people.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm just going to take you a little bit back. After the letter of the 9th of December 2015, wherein they asked whether a curator should be appointed, the department wrote a letter on the 15th of December 2015 saying they will continue to discharge patients. Again, the word discharge. Are you aware of that letter?
I'm aware that we had a discussion on that. I might not.
And did you use the term discharge again in a loose way?
The discharge, I think that they were talking of at that particular moment, which we debated with SADC, was the issue of the normal discharge when a patient is being discharged. Because
and normal discharge means going home, not to another home?
Yes.
Okay. Then you, on the 22nd of December 2015, Section 27 brought the urgent application. That's right.
The court application?
Yes.
Yes.
And you said you had a meeting and you decided to settle the meeting. It was the day before the urgent application was to be in court that you settled. Is that right?
Yes, under the leadership of the HOD, we agreed with the other parties that maybe we need to work together.
Yes, that's very important. You were against the idea of a curator. You didn't agree to a curator at all?
Myself, personally? Or
the department, either, sir?
Yeah, the department did not. I think they did not agree on the curator.
Can I ask you, what did you understand about the settlement? What did it mean?
For me, it meant that we must work together with the stakeholders, hold meetings and agree on the processes and on what needs to be done, and then all the way work together.
Yes. So as
for the sake of the patients.
Absolutely, sir. So as a responsible leader, you realize here are some expertise, a lot of people, and they can assist to take this feeling away that something is going to go wrong. No doubt that happened in your mind.
Yes.
So you were probably eager to engage with them.
Yes, I was engaging with them.
No, sir. My question is, were you eager to engage with them?
Yes.
And did you engage with them on a daily basis?
As a department, we did engage with them.
My question to you, sir, is did you engage with them on a daily basis?
Me, individual?
Yes, to get expertise.
Yes, I was engaging with them. We had an agreement to have regular meetings to share information and to do work together.
I'm going to repeat my question. I'm not sure whether you understand my question. My question is, did you engage with them on a daily basis, yes or no?
Not on a daily basis.
On what frequency were your meetings?
Hello?
How often did you have the meetings, sir?
It was a regular meetings, but it was not scheduled meetings.
Okay, yes, I understand that,
Yeah.
but what I understand under regular and what you understand might differ. So I need to know, what does regular meetings mean?
When they needed to meet with us, we met.
When they asked for a meeting, you obliged. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and even if we wanted to meet, we would have asked them to come together.
What did you need them for meetings for, sir?
What we did was to give them feedback in terms of what is being done and where is the progress, and they will raise issues of concerns and will explain the issues and will debate some of the issues that they did not agree with.
Let's just differentiate between the processes. You said you will meet whenever they wanted to meet. I'm trying to establish when did you want to meet and did you arrange meetings? Did you call for meetings with them to tap into their expertise?
The stakeholders meetings was under the ambit of the HOD. So I was just a supportive in terms of that as a project manager.
You were what, sir? Sorry?
Supportive to the HOD because
were you part of
the chairperson of the stakeholders meeting was the HOD.
Okay. So were you part of those meetings
yes.
with the stakeholders?
Yes, to provide support and also to
How often
to brief,
were they?
Yeah?
How often?
Whenever the meetings were called.
When, sir?
Yeah?
How often? Let us take it, the urgent application was on the 22nd of December 2015. You said to the court yesterday your process started in urgent in January 2016. Were you any meetings between 22nd December and January?
There should have been meetings, Council. There should have been meetings. The minutes will reflect that.
Okay, so I'm aware of 3 meetings, one on the 6th of January 2016, one on the 20th of January 2016, and one on the 9th of February 2016. Is that not so?
Yes.
Were there other meetings after that?
No, there were no meetings after that. I think there was tensions and disagreement. And
you realize that you're not coming to a settlement with them?
I think it's them who pulled out.
Sorry?
I think it's them who pulled out because we did not.
You're saying it was they that did not want to engage anymore?
Yes.
So you understood, if I can just recap, you understood the settlement agreement is that you will engage them?
And we will work together.
And that you would work together?
Yes.
Did you understand it that you won't move patients where they would become to harm? Or did you not think that was part of it?
That was the assurance.
You gave them that assurance. You will make sure that the patients aren't moved to a place where they're getting less treatment.
Yes, but the misunderstanding came to the word discharge.
We'll get to that, sir. So in your mind, you've undertaken, I will engage these guys, I will try to accommodate them, and I won't harm the patients. Is that a good summary of how you understood?
As Gauteng Health Department, yes.
But you understood it that way. Very well. Now, you, on the 10th of March, you said you're going to move 50 patients, 10th of March 2016, to Takalani. Is that right? Remember that letter?
Written by me?
By the department, sir.
Okay.
But you, the project manager, you should have known about that probably.
Yeah, you can refer me to that letter.
I'll refer you to the letter that was written by the Depression and Anxiety Group. It's on page 1017. And that will be in file 5, as I have it.
File 5. The number again?
1017, sir.
Is it 5? No.
Volume, file 5, yes.
4.
5.
I've got 5. Is that with?
Oh, you. Is it 5?
Is it not 5?
Mine has it file 5.
Of course, while you're looking like that, at some point, Council, you'll have to indicate to me where this detail is taking us to.
I'm very nearly close to that detail to explain to you where the
we're
detail
going
is.
to.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
we need to get to the substantive questions through cross-examination, but we must check whether the detail actually gets us there.
It's file 3, sir.
Hello?
It's page 1017 in file 3.
File
3.
File 3.
Thank you.
One zero seven.
1017.
1017. Okay.
Now, the department was going to move 50 patients to Takalani. And on the 10th of March 2016, the depression and anxiety group said you can't move them because there are going to be considerable, imminent, and irreparable harm. Remember that?
This letter was not.
You didn't know about that letter?
Yeah, it had gone to, I think it was Life Esidimeni executive. It was Life Esidimeni executive. It was written to Life Esidimeni.
So were you aware of that letter saying you can't move these guys to Takalani? It's going to be problematic.
I didn't read that
Okay.
letter. Yeah.
Now, the very next day, Section 27 said to you guys, don't move these patients because we're going back to court. Did you get that letter?
Which letter?
Were you aware that Section 27 was saying we're going back to court if you move the 50 patients?
I was aware that there was a debate between Section 27 and mental health in terms of what discharge is. And
so we'll get to that.
Yes.
Well, you know there were people going to be moved to Takalani. The day after that, you cert with a notice of motion say you're in contempt of the agreement. Remember that? On the 12th of March 2016.
I don't remember it, but
yes,
I've got a vague idea. Yes.
Now, on the 13th of March, you were in court, and then you raised the issue of these patients are not going to be moved, they're going to be discharged. So we can't be in contempt of the court order. Remember that?
Yes, I remember that we were in,
Yeah.
in
Would
court.
you say that's discharge, moving 50 people from one place to another?
It was more of placement, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
And that was part of the agreement. You can't move people if there's a problem with that. You probably told your attorneys, no, let's engage these people. We're doing wrong here. Did you not do that? So you knew there's a problem coming. You knew it all along. You've said it already a month before. Now there's a court action. You're now before a judge of the High Court. Did you stand up and say, this is a problem?
I was not a participant. There were people who were.
You didn't sign an affidavit?
I say I was not. I did go to the court, but we are represented by our clinical people.
Yes, but you, the project leader, you knew he has problems coming. Isn't that so? Now you say, no, we're not moving them, we're not placing them, we're discharging them. So therefore, our previous agreement is not of any value here. Is that not what your papers say?
I'm not sure.
No. Now, 2 days later, on the 15th of March 2016, Judge Valley gives a judgment. And he says, yes, maybe you guys are right, maybe you don't, you thought that you discharging them and not moving them. But he says, be careful. You're placing adults with the children. And there might be problems of overcrowding. Remember that the judge said that?
I don't remember.
You didn't read the judgment? Did you read the judgment, sir?
I did read a lot of papers. I don't remember in so many words.
You can't remember whether you read the judgment? You're shaking your head, I can't hear you?
I don't remember.
You can't remember reading the judgment?
I can't.
I want to put it to you as a responsible project manager, you would have read the judgment to make sure what the judge says in there. Don't you agree with me, thinking back now who you are?
Yes.
Yes. So now the first death occurred on barely a week after the judge's judgment on the 23rd of March 2016, according to the Ombuds report. You weren't aware of that death. Is that not so?
At that time?
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't aware.
According to you, you only became aware of this in July, August 2016. Is that so? So from March to July, August, you didn't know that people were dying in your project?
You see, Council, ill people die, and it's attended to, it's reported to. Mental health unit has a process of reporting the deaths and investigating and all those things. So it did not raise, for me, I wasn't aware because as a health department, people die all the time. Sick people die. Sick people die. And I think the issue, when I became aware of a lot of people dying, that became a concern for me.
Yes, but in the department's view, these were healthy people because they were discharged. They were not sick people. Isn't that so?
They were stable people, they were not healthy people.
So, bearing in mind that to put a lot of people in an NGO could harm the others in that facility, despite Judge Valley's warning, you still went ahead and did that, didn't you? Placed a lot of people in NGOs where there was a lot of overcrowding.
Yeah, we should have avoided overcrowding. I agree on that.
Now, when you move these people in mass, were you discharging them or were you relocating them?
That's why I say there's an issue of the...
No, I'm asking you, sir. When your people were in mass taken from Life Esidimeni, Waverley, it was emptied on the 31st of May 2016.
They were being, in my definition, they were being placed.
Yes, they weren't being discharged. Isn't that so?
Yes.
So your agreement with Section 27, the December agreement, should have kicked in, shouldn't it?
Yes.
In your mind, you thought that it was part of the agreement that I wouldn't do anything to harm these patients.
Yes, it's very technical.
No, it's not technical, sir. You've already said I was placing them. It was in terms of the agreement. But you renegade on that agreement in its totality. Isn't that so?
I can't agree with that.
You knew these people were not being discharged. The guys in Waverley, Life Esidimeni. Is that true? In the 31st of May 2016, when you emptied out that whole place, you knew they were not discharged.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that in technical terms, discharge is discharge from hospital.
No, but I'm talking about you,
to
sir.
other facilities.
You knew that these guys weren't discharged, they weren't healthy. And in your mind, your agreement with Section 27 was in place. You weren't going to place these guys in a worse position.
They were stable. They were chronic patients, stable, stabilized, and they were having regular medications.
Sir, you knew when you sent these people, when you closed Waverley, this wasn't discharging. You already agreed to that now.
Well, Advocate Krause, you'll have to put it to him, and he must respond to that.
Court, please.
Ask him 4 times about it. Won't quite change much. I think you have to put to him the proposition once you've laid a basis, so that we can move on.
Thank you, Justice.
And it must be kept in mind, the state has conceded that their conduct was unlawful, was negligent, and was not consistent with the standards that were required here. So let's deal with the detail, keeping that in mind, that there is this overarching concession. So
Yes.
the detail should get us to, in a way that actually gets us closer, ultimately, to equitable redress.
Court, please.
Very well.
Sir, I'm asking you these questions because I want to make sure this type of thing never happens again, that the courts are being misled and that the courts can't protect clients. So what I'm putting to you is that you came with an understanding of what your agreement was in December 2015 with Section 27. But in March 2016, you didn't have any regard to that agreement with Section 27. Do you agree with me?
Personally, I did have regard.
Okay. I put it to you further, sir, that you wouldn't have moved all of these patients if you had regard to that agreement. Do you want to answer? So I see I'm not...
I valued the contribution of SADC and Section 27, and I would have liked us to continue. They
You valued it?
They would have helped us a lot.
Yes. So you say you valued it? How did you show that you valued it?
I was engaging with them.
In May 2016, when you moved all these patients, you were engaging with them? Is that what you're telling this commission?
I don't know how to answer that.
The answer is no, sir. You didn't value them. You didn't engage them. It's an easy answer. Let us move on. According to, and I'm very nearly finished now. I'm just wrapping up on this. According to you, by 30 June 2016, you've done all the moves of all the patients. Did I understand you correctly?
That was the timeline, because anyway, the facilities were going to be closed.
Yes. So can we accept that there were nobody moved after 30 June 2016?
That was the deadline. So if people remained, it was very few people, but the deadline was that at the end of 30 June, the companies were closing their doors. And people were...
No, but the question is direct. Let's try and save time also.
Yes.
They're asking you whether any people moved after 30th of June. Answer could be yes or no.
Most of the people were moved at the end of June.
No, whether any people moved after the end of June.
I'm not clear, Judge, whether all the people were moved at the end of June, but the plan was that by the end of June there will be no patients in the facilities, unless if there were issues that had to be attended to.
So would it be safe to say, in your mind, all the patients were moved by the 30th of June? You weren't aware of anybody left?
They should have been moved. Yeah.
In your mind, sir?
Yeah, I was.
Just a yes or no. Yes, in your mind, everybody was moved.
Was supposed to be moved.
So you were wanting to look after these patients that you've now moved in the NGOs by 30 June 2016. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, I just want to take you through some of the service agreements. The Bofelong service agreement. You're aware of that service agreement?
Where?
Bofelong.
Bofelong?
Yes.
No, I'm not.
Did you move patients to them?
Bofelong, where is Bofelong? I haven't visited that NGO.
Okay.
I visited yesterday. I said Bofelong, it was Chepon that I visited.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the service levels agreement, sir. According to the paper supplied by us, that service level agreement was signed on the 4th of July 2017 by them, and on the 30th of August 2016 by the department. So it's fair to say that people moved there would have been without any payment until after 30 August 2016. Would that be fair?
I'm not sure. I can't answer that one.
Let's accept, sir, that the last date on the service level agreement, when it was signed by your department, was the 30th of August 2016. If we accept that, is it fair to say they wouldn't have received any subsidies before that date?
I'm not aware of the situation, but yeah, technically it's true. If they were moved, the service level was agreed on the 30th of August. I'm not aware of that.
If we move to Cullinan, that was only signed on the 11th of July 2016. So when you move the patients there, we must accept there was no service level agreement in place and no subsidies in place. Do you agree?
There were problems in Cullinan. There were problems in terms of the NGOs that were part of the Cullinan agreement. So there were particular problems. So those issues will arise.
So Santa Tsepong, that was also one of the NGOs that you used?
Tsepong, yes. Next to Kalafu.
That service level agreement was only co-signed on the 16th of August.
Yes.
2016. So we can be sure that for nearly 2 months at the least, there were no money coming to them. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
Well, the question that begs an answer is why did you do this? Why do you move people to an NGO with no proper service level agreements and with no resources? Why did you do this?
As I said yesterday, it was the enormity of the task. Mistakes crept in. And I can't explain the mistakes.
You can't call these mistakes. The law has requirements which we heard of yesterday.
Yes.
And in any case, you need a service level agreement.
Yes.
And you need resources.
Yes.
In order to place people, to use your language.
Yes.
But why do you do this in circumstances that will endanger the lives of these vulnerable patients? Why did you people do that? Why did you, as head of project leader, why did the department do it? Why did its HOD do it? And why did the MEC do it? Maybe you can't speak for them. Can you speak for yourself?
Yes, for myself, I think our plans were not tight enough.
What do you think was the most common cause for these deaths? Did you come to know of that afterwards?
The first, there were factors that contributed to death.
No, I'm asking what
Yeah.
did you find out to be the most common causes of death?
I think the patients were, most of them had comorbidities.
Had what?
Comorbidities. There was not only psychiatric patients, some of them had diabetes, hypertension, other chronic diseases. So they needed to be taken care of in terms of food. They needed to be looked after by people familiar with them, which we did not provide because they were in a complete new environment. And also, it was a winter season. They needed clothes. And if you move people to the areas where they don't have the resources, it was going to be difficult for them. So all these factors, I think, exacerbated their condition.
And knowing all that, the inevitable question again is, why did you place the lives of these patients at risk? If you're diabetic and there's no food, you're going to
have problems, yes.
No, not problems. What's going to happen to you?
Huh?
If you're diabetic and you have no adequate food, what's going to happen to you?
You are going to be sick. You are going to be sick, and eventually you might die.
So why did you do this? I'm going back to this question that worries me most. That emerges from all this detail.
Council, we should have done better. We will have avoided all these things, these questions.
Yeah, the question is, why didn't you do better?
I did raise issues.
You were warned by a variety of entities, by specialists. I'm repeating myself like a gramophone now.
Yes, I know, Council.
Like you're warned by specialists, you're warned by lawyers concerned with access to health care. You were warned by family members, the patients themselves. You told us so this morning. You went to Waverley, you went to Randfontein. You thought your MEC is misled. In all of that, you push ahead. And to your knowledge, also during winter.
Yes.
And people inevitably die. So the question must be, why did you choose this careless option, this heartless option, rather than the cautious one, which every public official ought to choose, but to Billy? Why didn't you choose that option?
Justice, I will always say that I should have been much more stronger in my contention against this thing. Maybe I should have pulled out, but it did come to my mind that maybe I should pull out when I saw those kids and the conditions people were in. But I thought I will be able to contribute and make a difference, and I regret that it ended up the way it has ended up. I tried my best, but it was not the best because people died.
You see, the Ombudsman says he was deeply saddened that most of you were visibly scared of your leaders. I'm sorry, I'll repeat the question. I'm sorry. Thank you, Recorder. The Ombudsman came here and told us that he was saddened by the fact that state officials who are paid to do their work were visibly scared of the people they reported to? Were you scared?
Myself, I did tell also the ombudsman that I was not scared, but the conditions that we worked under. Maybe I will raise it when I close the remarks, that maybe Department of Health must be run by people who know health. It would have been far better.
We'll give you an opportunity to make your closing remark, but I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Please complete.
Because in my years in the department, I've worked under people who are health conscious. You can be able to reach them, but it was difficult to reach the MEC because maybe because we are trained differently. I don't know.
Maybe because she was?
Trained differently. I'm from the health training. So that's why I say maybe that was the demarcation.
Were you afraid to tell her that she was wrong and you thought you were right?
As a person, I did raise issues, and I did raise issues even in the meeting. But you see, Judge, when you are in these meetings and everybody's head is down, and you are the only one on a confrontational basis with your senior,
Why
it becomes
are their
very
heads
difficult.
down?
Yeah?
Do you know why everybody's head is down?
Maybe they were afraid, or I don't know, but the conditions that we worked in, senior management were, actually some of them even raised issues, but why do you do that? Why do you do that? But I had to stand for myself, but I think we need to improve on that as a government, that we have leaders who understand the trade. It will add much, much more value.
And leaders who are not afraid to tell
the truth, yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
You think so?
Yes.
And who are not afraid to confront the truth when the moment requires so?
Yes.
You agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that.
And if we had leaders who had confronted the truth here within the health department, we might have saved lives. Is it not so?
I should have done more as a person.
Council.
Just a few questions to wrap up. Your training, sir, you refer to your training now. What training are you referring to?
By training, I'm a dental therapist.
Thank you. Just following up on this question that Justice Moseneke has just asked you, an opportunity for you to tell the truth and to make a difference was that day when the contempt application was before court in March 2016. Would you agree with me? You could have made a difference then.
But my position was already known by that time.
No, sir. Your position wasn't known by Section 27. It wasn't known by the other NGOs. You should have stood up there and said, don't agree with this. Don't take technical points in court. That's totally non-existent. Let's deal with the situation now. You didn't raise that. You didn't tell the judge he has problems. Isn't that so?
Yeah, I should have interacted more with Section 27. I didn't interact with them more.
Was there any criminal proceedings or disciplinary proceedings against you throughout this process?
Against me?
Yes.
Well, from the department? No, I was not
No disciplinary proceedings. And any criminal proceedings, sir?
Against me?
Yes.
No.
Thank you, Justice Moseneke.
Thank you, Counsel, for a thorough cross-examination. Thank you. It's time for tea. When we return, you're going to hear from at least 3 advocates. No, 2, 3. There's going to be Advocate Groenewald, followed by Advocate Nkwichana. And then the advocate who called you here will have a brief re-examination.
Okay.
It's what lawyers do.
Yes.
And then you'll have your closing statement.
Yes.
So that's what's going to happen immediately when we come back. We'll resume around 12 o'clock. And so you still have at least 2 more sets of advocates and your own advocate. We will adjourn until we'll adjourn until 12 o'clock.
Well, there you have it, 25 minutes in. They'll be back, those hearings into the Life Esidimeni tragedy, which is resuming today. Levi Mosenoghi is at the center point right now, and of course under cross-examination. But right now, we'll take a short break and we'll go to sports after that.
Show me a greater power on the whole continent of Africa. Show me a greater power anywhere.
6th of June 1918 was the establishment of our movement to maintain that.
We need to do something about the educational upliftment of the Afrikaner, and we also need to do something about the economic upliftment of the Afrikaner. And that was the 2 main goals at that stage in 1918.
The Broederbond never was a cultural organization. It was a state-capturing organization. It is, in fact...
I like that term.
It has captured the financial systems. It has captured the parastatals. It has captured cultural organizations.
For all your constitutional and legal matters, tune into Rights and Recourse on Sundays between 2 and 3 Central African Time.
We are your eyes in all major events around the world.
A wonder not seen in the United States in almost 100 years.
It looks like the sky of a different world. You see the stars out during the day. You see a sunset 360 degrees all around you.
Before you leave, make sure that Dropburn is taking you through traffic alerts all around South Africa.
All we can do is stick to what we do and focus on our own job and not focus on them.
The Boks will also don the red jersey in this match to mark the 25th anniversary of rugby unity in South Africa.
An update on all major currency to guide you. A story of women in jail told in pictures by Fatima Mir through art that will blow your mind. Set the agenda for the day with Morning Live.
It is 5 p.m. Central African Time, broadcasting live from Johannesburg. This is PM News. Mugabe is wanted in South Africa on a charge of assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm. Mugabe allegedly assaulted local model Gabriela Engels with an extension cord.
If the minister has granted the First Lady diplomatic immunity, then it then means that she will not be prosecuted.
There will now be 16 countries that form part of SADC. The Comoros was added as a member state during this summit. New Zealand rugby great Sir Colin Meads has passed away at the age of 81 following the battle with the pancreatic cancer. In 1999, Meads was named New Zealand's greatest rugby player of the 20th century. This year, a bronze statue of Meads was unveiled.
Playoff spot against New Zealand. Brazil had already qualified as group winners.
For the first time since 1970, Argentina was in real danger of missing out on a World Cup spot. And things didn't start off well for the Argentinians against Ecuador. A Romario Ibarra goal within the first minute gave the home side the lead. But five-time World Player of the Year Lionel Messi had the last say. Messi scored a superb hat-trick when it mattered to guarantee his side one of the 3 berths that were still available.
I told the team, Messi doesn't know Argentina the World Cup. Football owes Messi the World Cup. And we, Argentina, were able to help him get to another World Cup. And that's the truth. He's the best player in history, and I really get excited to be able to be in a group with him.
Arsenal striker Alexis Sanchez, however, won't travel to Russia next year. This after Chile suffered a 3-0 loss to 5-time world champions Brazil. The Chileans were trying to qualify for their 3rd successive World Cup. But Gabriel Jesus with 2 goals and Paulinho dented Chilean hopes. Peru, meanwhile, failed to record the win against Colombia that would have ensured their automatic qualification. James Rodriguez scored first for Colombia in the 55th minute, but Paulo Guerrero equalized 20 minutes later to keep his side in the picture. While Colombia have qualified automatically, 5th place Peru will now face New Zealand in a home and away playoff. And Uruguay went behind at home to Bolivia, this after an own goal from Gaston Silva in the 25th minute. But 2 goals in each half by Martin Caceres, Edison Cavani and a brace by Luis Suarez gave Uruguay the edge to finish 2nd behind Brazil in the standings. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
Meanwhile, Ian Robben ended his international career after scoring twice to hand the Netherlands a 2-0 victory over Sweden in their World Cup qualifier last night. But the Dutch fell well short of the 7 goals they needed to reach the playoffs and will be missing out on Russia 2018. So, with that said, let's take a quick look, a quick guide on who's got it made to Russia 2018 already. From CAF, as you know, Nigeria and Egypt are through. CONMEBOL, Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, Colombia. CONCACAF, Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama, UEFA, Germany, Spain, Belgium, Portugal, England, Poland, France, Iceland, Serbia, Iran, South Korea. A couple of interesting points there. Iceland, first time they make it, great trajectory from Euro when they kicked England out of the Euro competition the last time out. Well, Iceland are going to the World Cup now. CONCACAF, Panama, going to the World Cup for the very first time. And another very interesting point is the CAF champions, Cameroon, are out. The CONCACAF champions, the United States, are out, as well as we've got another champion that's out. The CONMEBOL champions, Chile, are out. Now, Niger went down 4-0 to Spain in their Group D match at the FIFA Under-17 World Cup in India. The African team will have to beat Brazil in their final group match for any chance to advance in this tournament. Niger started the stronger of the 2 teams, forcing a few defensive errors early in the match. The young Gazelles kept pressing, but really seemed toothless in front of goal. Unlike Niger, when Spain got their chances, they took them well. And when they came out and went into the break 3-0 to the good. They did manage to score 1 more in the second half to boost their goal difference. Now, after the 2 matches, Niger and Spain are both on 3 points. Right now, the South African Football Intermediaries Association, SAFIA, and 36 members of the body representing soccer agents have been referred by the Competition Tribunal for prosecution by the Competition Commission in relation to price fixing. The Competition Commission announced this move yesterday. The Commission says fixing of a commission rate at any level is against the notion of the competition. Now, however, SAFIA says they've never fixed any prices and they sometimes get less than 3%. SABC News had SAFIA's Arthur Dlamini in studio, and this is what was said.
When we challenged the 3% was that obviously it was price fixing at the time. And also it's not correct to say we always charge 10%. You know, there's instances whereby we don't get paid at all. Yeah. There's instances whereby we get paid less than even the 3%. But all that we said was, let's be given rights to negotiate a fee on behalf of our members. Essentially, that was that. Yeah. It will be difficult for them. They must tell us to say, if they're saying we are colluding, it will be for what period? Because there was a time when FIFA was really allowing a certain price to be charged, you know. So it becomes a bit of a difficulty in that it's sub judice, but as I say, we will look at the papers. We are consulting our advocates tomorrow, and we will take it from there.
An MMA revolution is about to take place. TF1, The Fighter, Season 1, EFC's new reality TV show premieres on SABC 3 on the 14th of October at 9 p.m. Central African Time. Shot on location in a villa in Johannesburg, South Africa, 10 of the best undefeated middleweight prospects from around the world will live together, train together, and fight against each other in a quest to win the ultimate prize, a six-figure contract plus a guaranteed shot at EFC Gold. Notorious EFC superstars Demat Pena and Ishad Syed take the roles of rival coaches, feeding the fire of their own feud as their teams battle each other week by week. Have a look at this.
10 of the world's best fighters living in one house, led by two rival champions, competing against each other over 10 weeks in search of the ultimate contender. Introducing the most explosive competition in reality TV. This is The Fighter.
What you gonna do? Yeah, nothing. Egypt.
It's nation against nation, fighter against fighter, and coach against coach. It's Team Pena versus Team Syed.
What? Where you at? This thing, no! No, this you see that fire? What are you gonna do, huh? Yeah.
Let the battle begin. The Fighter Season 1 premieres Saturday, October 14th. Proudly presented by Constantia Insurance.
You'll remember that both Syed and Pena were in studio talking to me about this very Season 1, The Fighter. Well, hope you enjoyed. Thanks very much for having stayed with us. From me and the rest of the crew, have a great day. Ligamos, Bahaj.
Pump up your energy, keeping you in action through sports updates while resting at home. This is what's happening in your world of sports every weekend.
In the second half, Kolisi and Jaco Kriel combined well, and Kolisi scored his second try. He was also named man of the match.
Confusion from the West defenders gifted Batosi with a close-range goal.
In the 10th round, he pinned a visibly fatigued McGregor on the ropes and hammered the Irishman before the referee stepped in to stop the bout.
He's a tough competitor. He's a lot more experienced, especially in the layer.
Keep it locked on Sports Live every Saturday and Sunday at 20:30.
Weather seasons. In the spring, seeds take root and vegetation begins to grow. The weather is warmer and often rainy. Animals wake and return from hibernation, often with newborns. In summer, temperatures are hot and sometimes heat wave causes